Joining us now, Mr. Fit himself, Dr. Dave Brat, Republican Congressman, 7th District. That's the Central Virginia area. Congressman, good to have you with us, man.
Hey, John, great to be on. Yeah, I'm losing a little bit of the fitness, too. Too many Chick-fil-A sandwiches up in D.C., et cetera.
Those will nail you.
Yeah, I love them. But they're tasty.
Those will nail you. You know, it's not the chicken, it's everything that's on it, right? The bun and all that. That's what's going to nail you. All right, Congressman, so all of a sudden here, out of the blue, we're hearing that there might be this omnibus bill of like the mother of all omnibuses, where you fund the government, build the wall, repeal and replace Obamacare, and solve all the problems of the world all in one fell swoop, and this is going to happen by Friday. True or false?
Could be. We actually don't know. We had a conference call on Saturday with all of Congress, the Republican members, and they didn't want to get into too much detail because they want to, it gets leaked immediately. So we're going to pow out once we get in town tomorrow and go over it. But yeah, you're right. It's all coming to a head. And the good news is we got, President Trump in there now going to, hopefully crack the whip a little bit on all fronts. Usually in the past, these omnibus bills right before Christmas don't go over so well. And they include the Christmas tree. And even this go-round, Chuck Schumer, Senate Democrat, says he's happy with the budget process as of a few weeks ago. And so if that doesn't make chills run up your spine if you're a Republican, and I hope we hold our ground. We have all three branches, and everybody's looking at us, right, to get these things right when you got the House and the Senate and the presidency. And so, we got to get the health care bill through. I think that's looking positive this week coming up. And so there's good news there. We got some important reforms in there that make it better. And then on the budget, we're going to try to hold our ground. Otherwise, it falls back where they go and look for Democratic votes, right, instead of coming to conservatives, go get 40 votes out of the Democrats, and then you're going to get a busted budget. And so we don't want that. So we want to compromise, but we'd also like to get things that look like a Republican, philosophy embedded in the budget and get some fiscal responsibility going again. So a lot of it's going to be on Trump to see where he wants to put the leverage. And so keep your fingers crossed.
I tell you what, it should be interesting. When do you think you're going to actually see anything, or is this going to be like Nancy Pelosi Redux, pass it and then read it?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're having a vote Thursday or Friday, and we're not going to see it until Tuesday. And so the right members of Congress aren't going to see it until Tuesday, so that gives you a little hint. And so hopefully we see it Tuesday, and it doesn't have any shockers, but I'm sure there'll be a few, as usual. And that's the issue, right? We need to make our promises to the American people way in advance and just stick to them. And so it's a very frustrating process for all of us.
Wow. Okay, so I don't think this is going to get done by Friday, obviously. What's the date for the government shutdown? What's the date for that?
Yeah, that's Friday.
So what are you looking at here, Dr. Brad? Another continuing resolution, another CR? What do you think? Yeah,
I mean, there's some buzz that, you could do a CR for 2 weeks to give us, that extra 2 weeks of bargaining time.
Right.
And then getting the Democrats to go along. It's just amazing in the press. There's no pressure ever on the Democrats, right?
Why is that?
So, I mean, we got the House, the Senate, the President, and still, it's like the whole government's being run by 8 Democrats in the Senate. I mean,
why?
It's hard to fathom the leverage they get. And so we need to structure the leverage way better. But D.C. loves to spend money, and so that's part of the problem.
I mean, when Obama was president and you had a majority in the House, you had no leverage. So
right.
Now we've got the Republicans control all 3 levers of government, and they still have no leverage. How does this happen? What kind of math is this?
I don't know. That's what we need to structure the deal much better. So Mulvaney is structuring part of it, right? He proposed a $1 for the wall versus $1 for some of the Obamacare funding,
right?
To prop up the insurance companies that the Democrats want, and
right.
So we'll see if that sticks. So at least they're throwing out some trades, but I'm not even sure I like those trade-offs. It's things that our president ran on, the centerpiece of his campaign, versus additional funding for a Washington, D.C. that's already insolvent, right? And so we got the Freedom Caucus. We've been fighting to try and do the right thing, and there's 40 plus of us, and so we try to get things right, but we can't write the bill, right? We can block and try to make it better, and we're trying to do that, but that's the frustrating. We don't get to put the initial piece. And so the important thing, also tax reform's coming up too. And now there's like 3 competing pieces there, right? You could kind of have the Ryan budget bill that's got the border adjustable piece in it. That's controversial. And then you got the Mnuchin piece coming out of the White House, and he's saying maybe on the border adjustable, but probably not. And then you got the Trump campaign guys, Stephen Moore and Kudlow and Art Laffer and Forbes, the magazine Forbes, Steve Forbes, and they're saying, no, you just do the corporate thing and keep it simple and get something through so we get a big success.
Yeah, well, look, I tell you what, let me just tell you, representing a lot of my listeners, representing the core and the base of the Trump movement, Dave, I'm going to tell you straight out, Congressman, that the Steve Forbes, Larry Kudlow option would be a complete economic, a PR disaster. Because, you can sit and do any mathematical economic equations you want about how a corporate income tax is going to trickle down to the guy on the street struggling to keep his job and figure out how he's going to get through the weekend. But that is exactly the opposite of what Trump campaigned on. I mean, that is just traditional Republican politics, open trade, open borders, cheap labor, corporate tax cuts. That would be a PR disaster. You guys need to get a tax cut done that is going to benefit middle-class working families, because that's what he campaigned on, Congressman, not corporate tax cuts. That's got to be part of the economic plan. But, look, we got $2.5 trillion right now parked overseas, repatriation. Why not just say, okay, for the next 12 months, there's absolutely zero interest on it. Bring it home. We're not getting anything now. You have no downside. So you bring all this money back. Wouldn't that make sense?
Yeah, right. And so and that goes along with what you were saying, right? Because doing the debate's going to come down to just cutting some corporate rates, and that will stimulate the economy and also immediate expensing, and that'll help firms to hire the forgotten man. But you're right. Politically, it looks terrible when you're just giving a corporate rate cut without giving turning the 7 rates on the personal income side down into the 3 and giving everybody a tax rate reduction. But you're right. The hard part about doing the individual piece is that's tax reform.
Right.
And in tax reform, then you start getting rid of the deductions.
Right.
And then you get every special interest in the country weighing in big time.
Right.
But what you're saying goes along with that, right? Because if you get $2 trillion back in, that can really help soften the blow, and so that I think that's what they're holding that $2 trillion for, right?
Right.
To do the heavy lifting,
right?
So I hope they don't do that $2 trillion repatriation on just a corporate rate reduction, because that would be stimulative. But boy, then you've wasted all your bullets again, right?
Yeah. See, that's
the American people know what we promised,
right? And even the layman understands that. Okay, there's 2.5 or something trillion dollars parked overseas.
Right.
Because the corporate tax rate is too high, so they're not going to bring the money home because they don't want to pay 35% taxes on it. I mean, that businesses are in business to make money, and their CEOs get paid off it. So they keep it over there. But if you simply say, look, I'm going to give this window of time, just bring it all back for free, well, they're not paying anything on it now anyway. From nothing is nothing. So that doesn't matter. There's no difference. But then you get all this money pumped into the economy. I think the average person can understand that. Let's get to the CR. Rob Whitman was on Friday. Your colleague said, if a CR comes in front of my desk, I'm going to vote no. Is that your position also?
Well, it has been in the past, and so it all depends on this overall package right now, right? And so if we see a good health care changes and it's tied in, and then a good corporate package with the individual rate reductions we're just talking about, and some other promises and some leverage by Trump, then I'll be open-minded to it, right? Because if you do the government shutdown right now, then what happens, right? Leadership's laid out kind of a package, and then if we don't have the votes, they're going to go to the Democrats. And that is a real worry, because then Schumer's smiling like the Cheshire Cat. right? And so we're going to, again, try to use our leverage to maximize the best outcome we can get on the Republican side. But, yeah, if it's an unmitigated, train wreck, I'm obviously a no. And in the past, this has been my issue. Every Christmas I message like crazy, and you're usually covering it like usual very well. And I've been a no, no, no. And so this time, the new variable is you've got President Trump in. We're trying to establish some momentum, but you got to have momentum doing the right thing.
Right.
And so that, on the healthcare piece, I didn't think it was doing the right thing. And so now we're trying to fix it to give states some power to do the right thing and at least crack open the possibility for free markets. And we put in a few other pieces that lower prices and increase coverage. And so it's better, but it's not. It's still at the federal government level, which I don't like. But again, we didn't get to write the bill. We have to navigate within what's given, and so that's the best we can do right now. And so I'm going to try to keep moving along those lines.
All right, sounds like you got an open mind to it. If it can buy a couple weeks and you think we're moving in the right direction, you might be open to going for the continuing resolution. Is that what I've heard?
Yeah, I mean it's way too early. We haven't seen any numbers or anything yet, so that's what I can't even say. I mean, we haven't seen one number having to do with what that budget's going to look like.
Okay, Dr. Brat, let's get to the wall. The Trump administration making no bones this weekend saying we're going to build this wall. We campaigned on it for 2 years. It's the centerpiece of what we're going to do. Got a lot of Republicans, though, saying, we really don't need it, and we just need some barbed wire and drones. But Trump seeming to squash that concept that it would be abandoned this weekend. But there's nobody. I asked Congressman Griffith the other day, I said, who's carrying the bill? Like, who's carrying the funding bill for the wall? And the answer I got was nobody. So nobody's carrying the bill. What's the deal with the wall?
Yeah, well, it fits right into what we've been talking about. I mean, that's the centerpiece of Trump's campaign. And so a couple things going on. The conservatives don't want to bust the budget with a wall, but the numbers I've been hearing are very just preliminary coming out of Mick Mulvaney. He's the budget director. He used to be in the Freedom Caucus. And so the numbers they're put forward, they're just a beginning on the plans for the wall. So it doesn't look like any numbers are going to be budget busting. But the Democrats have said they're zero votes for the budget if you put the wall in there. And so Mulvaney's trying to negotiate with them and talk about Obamacare funding that runs out that they need and they want dollar-for-dollar trade-off for the wall. And so we'll see if that sticks, but I don't know if the Democrats are going to go for that deal. They're going very hard left right now. I mean, Bernie Sanders came out and just said over the weekend they're just off course, and they're having an identity crisis. So we can't get any cooperation, not one Democrat vote on any of these major pieces. And so that means you need all Republican votes, and so that makes it heavy lifting. And so we'll see, but that's where it stands right now.
So the Republicans that are not in favor of voting for funding for the wall, Congressman, that you just laid out for us.
Yep.
Did they get the memo? Did they have any idea who won this election? And do they understand that this president has been talking about this as the centerpiece of his campaign since he started talking about running in March of 2015? I mean, what planet do they live on?
No, it's a strange world. I mean, it's always, play on the team, right? You guys got to get on the team. In the Freedom Caucus, we're always told you got to be on the team. We're trying to be on the team, right? We promised, and Trump promised, and we promised and voted 50 times for a full repeal, right? So that the team said that, and so you want to be on the team, and then we're compromising within now a flawed federal structure, but the reciprocal argument doesn't seem to hold on the wall, right? When our team says we're going to do the wall, it's very popular, right? On the Republican side, illegal immigration in the narcotics trade and in every county across the nation. We have the opioid crisis just sweeping every single county I deal with. That's the number one issue all the sheriffs are dealing with. And so we got to end some of this. And so, right, it doesn't, I don't think we're going to build the wall of China, right? It's going to be a good mix of technology and the wall and all this, but it's going to be substantial. and it's going to require some investment to stop the flow. And so that's what we're all. I'm messaging on it. I got a piece coming out, coming out on it in a couple of days.
Well, Congressman, it's just inconceivable to me. I mean, I got the whole Obamacare fight, regardless of where you were on it, on the replacement. I got that because the president never really campaigned on a specific replacement. So that's open fodder. I get that. But you win an election to the extent that he did, coming from behind with changing blue states to red. And the centerpiece of this campaign was controlling illegal immigration at the southern border. And the cornerstone of that was a wall. And to have this many Republicans saying they're simply not going to vote for it is unconscionable to me. It's as if the voters in 2016, like, the hell with them. Like, they don't matter. It's almost like they're saying, let them eat cake. Now, I get the Democrat resistance. I get that. That makes sense. But when your own party can't even back up the president that got elected on a platform of which they wrote in on, you just shake your head. It's just a crazy town, is it not?
Yeah, well, I ran on similar stuff 2 years ago before it was cool, just because I started thinking about it. I saw the economic damage it's doing to our workers and to our firms and to business startups and to our infrastructure system, to the costs that the counties have to absorb for education. I had one guy tell me he's got 17 languages up in Fredericksburg. They got to pay for 17 language instruction. And so
unbelievable.
There comes a point where you just cross the line, and the costs are just overwhelming, and we need to fix it, and this is one big way to start fixing it.
All right, we're out of time. I want to thank Congressman Dave Brat for being with us. Now, here's where you can follow him. Sign up for his newsletter. Really cool newsletter. Got to get this. Here's how easy it is. Easiest website in the history of man. DaveBrat.com. How easy is that?
That's right.
DaveBrat.com. Congressman, as always, it's an honor to have you on. Thanks for being with us. We'll be in Washington the next couple of weeks. I'm going to catch up with you when I'm up there. And we'll be at the White House reception tonight for conservative media. We're honored to be there. And we'll see you, if not this week, on next Monday, sir. Thanks for being with us.
Super. Yeah. Hey, that's a big feather in your cap. Congratulations on that. You well earned, well deserved. And so God bless you and everybody out there. Thank you all.
Thank you, Congressman Dave Brat.